Silvina, and I am delighted to share with you this conversation with the incredible Bill Schmarzo. He is such a thoughtful, generous, and inspiring thought leader in the data, information, and AI space. He brings a lot of humanity and wisdom to the practice of data and information, which is very much needed today. His focus is not on AI, his focus is on humans and human value, human potential and creativity. In this episode, he shared plenty of insights, wisdom, and examples that will be part of his upcoming book, The AI Human Edge. Enjoy the episode and share with others.
If we want to develop AI models that deliver more relevant, meaningful, responsible, and ethical outcomes, that's on us to make certain that we're designing the models, the AI utility function that really drives those models. And so I think there is a fear, and it's probably brought on by, movies, Terminator, Eagle Eye, and things like this that have shows AI kind of going amok, right? But we have a chance as humans to take this phenomenal technology and use it not just as a productivity tool. And I think our industry is just slowly getting past this idea that I'm going to use this as a productivity tool to replace people, when in reality, what it does, it's an augmenter of human curiosity, human innovation, human exploration, human discovery. It's a tool it's like a partner that the more it learns about us and how we work and how we think and what we seek to achieve, it can help us do that. And I am a very, very deep user, for example, of ChatGPT. I have my own GPT called the Dina Big Data GPT. If you have a ChatGPT license, you can download a digital version of me. And I use that tool 50, 60, 100 times a day, because not to replace me, but to help me think through ideas and concepts. Because for one thing, I've loaded all my books and blogs and such into it, and it remembers things that I don't remember writing. It's like, oh, that's right, I wrote that 12 years ago. Oh, here it is for you. So I couldn't be more excited about what I think this tool can do, because I'm experiencing it. And as you mentioned, I'm writing this new book, and it's been this ChatGPT has been instrumental in helping me to explore different ideas and such. So I think it's a great tool.
I resonate so much with that, because when you use the tool, I think you quickly realize that all this notion of vibe coding, and that someone can suddenly, from no background at all, build this wonderful software, I think it's clear when you do it that it's not like that at all. You need your own background, your own knowledge, and your own judgment. You need to have really good judgment to make the tool actually useful. So I think the human component is not lost.
Right. It's augmented. One of the concepts in the book that I talk about is not human in a loop, but AI in the middle, right? Think about how, if I'm a teacher and I'm working with a student, an individual student, the AI can learn about my predicted behavioral and performance propensities, the things that I do well, the things I don't do well. It can learn about the student's predicted behavioral and performance propensities, and it can help us to match. It can help us figure out, how do I match what I do well with what the student needs help doing? And it's a great tool for doing that. It's also a great tool to say, for this particular student, maybe you're not the right teacher for them. Maybe they need somebody else, right? You're a math teacher, and the student you think is struggling with math, but it's not math they're struggling with. They have test anxiety. It has nothing to do with math. Math has to do with testing and anxiety. So maybe a better mentor or coach for them in this situation is this particular teacher. And it can learn that. It can figure out what the student needs, where they're struggling, what the teachers do best, and help to blend those so that our students, in this example, reach their full potential. And it's true for nursing. It's true for operations. It's true for graphic designers. It's true for detectives. It's true for, you pick any profession. And this tool can help us become the best at what we can become, because it builds upon that innate knowledge and expertise we already have, and hopefully leverages that curiosity that we've got to get better. The software developers, coders, and programmers at first it looked like they were all going to get replaced with, everybody's written all the code you're ever going to need, and you throw a Gen AI tool on top of this with a large language model, and it's going to crank out all the code. And we're learning that's not true, right? It's learning that, yeah, it'll give you basic frameworks, general frameworks, average frameworks, right? If you think about what Gen AI does, it's a massive averaging tool, statistical averaging. You can look across all the data it has, and it says, on average, this is best. Well, most of us want to be better than average. And so we take that, what is given to us as a programmer or a data scientist in my case, and it helps me sort of think of the framework. Here's where we're going to start. I'm like, okay, now here's where I need to go next. And now my expertise, my understanding dramatically can take and build upon that. That tool can help me get there more quickly, but it doesn't replace me. It allows me to be more thorough, more exploratory, and sometimes even more creative in how I think about the kind of models I want to build.
In terms of data, so the data that feeds the model, something that I was thinking is in data analytics, sometimes you feel like you have a lot of data to analyze and make sense of. On the other hand, sometimes you're missing very key information, Now, with AI, I feel like we are being able to unlock more data because it can capture unstructured data as well. But I can imagine that now we have this overwhelming amount of data. And I'm wondering, all the infrastructure side, are we adapting well? How are teams, like IT, data science teams, how are they coping? Because I feel like here in New Zealand, maybe we are a bit behind. So your thoughts are really useful.
So data architectures have always struggled. They've always been the least common denominator problem, right? Which is that if I looking across, think about, data warehouses, and we built data warehouses not for uniqueness, we build it for averages, for average kinds of queries we're asking and the kinds of questions and performance reports. And so we've always taken this approach, and data warehouses as an example. The minute you build a model, you're making a conscious decision as far as what data is not important, because you're going to aggregate out or get rid of outliers or some things that are very valuable nuances. And so what we've seen historically is that because data is so large, we tend to take samples, we aggregate, we look, and aggregation wipes out the valuable nuances we need. And so what's happening is we're seeing from a data perspective, I need the detail, right? I don't need the point of sales data summarized on a retail transaction. I want the data from the T-logs that come right off the point of sales things, right? I want detail because it's in those details where the valuable insights I can leverage to make better decisions about the checkout clerk or the customer or product pricing or merchandising or inventory or right, whatever it is. And so what a challenge is that the data volumes are growing dramatically, but we've always captured data. We've always captured granular data. We just always have summarized it up because the user can't handle the detailed data. But now with AI, I can have a look through and I can tell AI to find me here's the problem I'm trying to solve, right? And you've read my Thinking Like a Data Scientist methodology. It's a methodology for critical thinking, for lack of a better term, right? This is the problem I'm trying to solve. These are my desired outcomes. These are the KPIs, metrics around which I'm going to measure success. I got all this information I'm putting together, right? If I provide all that and tell it what I'm trying to do, what problems I'm trying to solve, what decision I'm trying to make, I can ask it, well, what data elements do you think inside of there are most valuable for that? And how should I combine those data elements together? What data elements am I missing? Could I go get? And it can dig through all that huge volume of data at light speed, right? I don't have to worry about aggregating because it's going to say, oh, you might want to look at, this and that. I got to tell you this phenomenal story. So working with a sports organization, and they're trying to build models on each of their athletes, on their predictive behavioral propensities. What do they do well in what situations, and very granular data. And I use a lot of sports to test this stuff because with sports, I have what I call objective observable outcomes observability. I have detailed data. If somebody's playing, soccer, for example, when they kicked the ball, was it successful? Was it intercepted? Did it go to the right place? I have lots of data available. And we were playing around with data sets and we were brainstorming. And I thought, what's a very interesting data set that we might want to explore is radio play-by-play announcers who are announcing a game. And we started thinking about radio play-by-play announcers. In this case, I was looking at it from a American baseball perspective. They have decades of experience. And the reason why radio announcers are better than TV, because radio announcers have to paint a vision of what's going on. So here comes Bill to bat. He's been bad the last 2 innings. He's really struggled. This kind of left, they have all kinds of detail. If you take those transcripts and you start mining them for insights, they're going to find things. We did this experiment. I was shocked, and I shouldn't have been, right? Because subject matter experts were sharing their insights and very, very detailed, right? Huge amounts of data. And the AI tool could go through and say, well, this is an interesting observation. You might want to use this. And here's an interesting bit of data, right? It can help us take this massive amounts of data. And I don't have to pre-structure it in a data lake or a data warehouse like I've had to do in the past. I can leave it in its raw state where it sits and have the AI tools worm their way through it, finding stuff that's valuable and saying, hey, take this and merge it with this and try this, and you might get something useful. You might, by the way, get something useful. Think about the power of that term, you might, right? It comes up with these ideas. It's up to us. It's up to my data science team, for example, to validate that, yes, those variables are actually explanatory of the problem, right? So they has ideas, but I still have, as a data scientist, I still have the onus, the responsibility of saying, does that actually help to make a better decision?
For a very long time, we got these complaints from people, from teams, business teams, saying that what we were providing from data analytics was not enough. It was not insightful enough. Because many times we just run, descriptive analytics, and we give them a report or a dashboard, and people start looking at the data, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, people. So I had a wonderful experience in my life. And by the way, my life is full of what I call Forrest Gump moments, right? Right place, right time. Sometimes in life, you just get lucky. And this one, I was the vice president of advertiser analytics at Yahoo. This is probably about 20 years ago. And I remember we were talking to the media planners and buyers and the campaign managers for the accounts that we were servicing at Yahoo. Think about all the advertisers using Yahoo services. And I remember I was struck by a very simple concept, a really simple point. One of the media planners and buyers said, I don't want data. I want you to tell me what insights are in the data that are important for the decisions I'm trying to make. Now think about that. What insights in the data are important for the decision I'm trying to make? And so then we started talking about, what decisions are you trying to make? Well, trying to make decisions about what ads to show and day parting and when you started getting into that, you started realizing, you started walking in their shoes, which, by the way, why I'm a big fan of design thinking. I had to walk in their shoes, create a journey map of their day, what the decisions. And once I knew that, then I could figure out they don't want data. Out of this big blast mess of data that I've got, I can pull out insights about my customers, my visitors, my advertisers, my campaigns, my products and such. And these are the insights that I can start pulling out and bringing together like a Lego block so I can make better decisions around advertising and promoting and all these kinds of things, right? So to me, it was that observation that don't give me data. I don't want reports. Don't throw an Excel spreadsheet at me. Tell me what I need to know. That was it. Tell me what I need to know. Yeah. And it's like, yes. And if I know what decision you're trying to make, right? If I know how you're going to measure the success and the effectiveness of decisions, if I know that, I'm head start already in trying to figure out what insights I can pull out from the data to help you make better decisions.
And this really changes all the interaction between people, because it feels like before we were very fragmented. It's like someone asking me a question and I go to the database, I query, I produce a chart, I give it to them. It's like it's very fragmented and it loses really the point, right?
It loses the human interactivity that makes humans so powerful, right? Being able to sit there in real time, themselves asking questions using a Gen AI tool or collaborating with another person, you all brainstorming together using these tools to help you figure out. Yeah, it leverages that human the deep tribal knowledge that's in each side of us. So one thing that always strikes me, so I run a lot of these workshops, and we pick a problem like nurse retention or cross-selling customers or reducing unplanned operational downtime. We pick a problem, we bring together people who are all trying to solve this problem. And every time when we do this, I'm struck by how deep of tribal knowledge people across the organization have about the same problem, right? And there's always this moment of epiphany in one of these workshops where we're going through this brainstorming process. Again, lots of design thinking, post-it notes on flip charts and desired outcomes, KPIs and metrics, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And there's this moment of time where they almost all stop and look at each other and they go, we're all trying to solve the same problem. Yes, you are. But we all have different perspectives on this problem. Is that the problem? And I will say, no, that's not the problem. That's the opportunity. The fact that you're all looking at this differently means that you have as an organization, you have a more holistic, broader perspective on the problem you're trying to solve. You're not trying to solve it from a marketing perspective or a sales or an operations. You're trying to solve it from hopefully a broader perspective, hint, customer, right? A customer perspective, and how do sales, marketing, finance, logistics, store operations, how do they combine together to provide a better customer experience, to get the right product to the customer at the right price at the right time? And so these workshops, and I love doing these workshops. They're just totally gaga by them, because you always see people starting to, once they realize they're all trying to solve the same problem, they literally light up. The room explodes in innovative energy. So again, you're spot on, is that we've had this process where you needed a data czar, where I had a question. I'm a brand manager. I have a question about sales over here. So I got to ask a data czar, and they go off and work at it, and they come back to me, if I'm lucky, 2 hours later, more likely a week later. By the time it comes back, I'm on to another problem. It's like, well, that was interesting, but I had to make a decision. And by the way, I made it based on what I thought was the right decision based on my past experience. And so you're right. I think this ability to provide that real-time collaboration using these tools that can react and learn in real time is a real game changer for organizations, and most importantly, for the people working in those organizations.
And in terms of, I'm really curious, how do you approach documenting these processes? Because something that I'm thinking is, the concept of reproducibility, that we care so much in data, that we want to produce an output that can be reproducible, that you can go through all the scripts and get to the same result. But now it's like we have much more potential to derive insights, but because these tools have are less deterministic, I wonder if it's harder to kind of track decisions and maybe document all the process in a way that maybe if you do the whole thing again, will you get different insights, and how do you know when to stop?
Well, you very well might get different insights. And the reason why you might get different insights is because the world we live in is changing, right? And so the decision that we make today might be a very different decision even a day from now. Somebody puts a tariff on this. There's a market collapses, or Taylor Swift releases a new record, right, or whatever, right? The world is constantly changing. So the way to ensure consistency is, first off, make sure that data is easily accessible by everybody. Don't allow data silos. Do not allow duplication, right? Make sure that everybody is starting with the same base of data. There's the data economic multiplier effect. I talk about, the economics of data and analytics. This is a really powerful concept, because I can take the same data set and use it across an unlimited number of use cases at zero marginal cost. But if I don't architect it in a way so it's shareable, I lose that all-powerful data economic multiplier effect. So number one is, how do you make sure we get consistent results? First off, make sure everybody's using the same data. If someone is not using their version of the data that they had to download. But the second thing I think is also important is, do not allow for orphaned analytics. I had one person call them zombie analytics, where somebody goes off and builds an analytic model or an analytic application. We see this, by the way, with chatbots, where people are just cranking out chatbots, right? Boom, doing this, doing that. And most of them don't use the same data. And so depending on what chatbot you're talking to, you're getting a different answer, right? So think about, again, using the same data, but why have 5 different chatbots? Why not have one? One that's, let's say that you're a university, for example, and I want a chatbot that helps students to pick more, figure out what classes they should be taking. And I want a chatbot that helps students who are struggling with math. And I want a chatbot that helps the food ordering service order lunch tomorrow and such. right? Don't build them separate. Build shareable models. And this is the power of AI, because you can build these models and that support multiple use cases. I think I call them composite scores in my book. The idea that these scores can support all these different kinds of use cases to help make decisions. And the power is the more that these scores and these analytic models, the more use cases they see, the more valuable they become. They become more relevant, more accurate, more meaningful. And they have to be engineered. They must be engineered with what I call the learning constructs, right? You've got to have instrumentation. You got to have observability. You got to have feedback loops. You got to have stochastic gradient descent. You got to have back propagation. You got to have temporal difference learning. You got to have this thing. So these tools are, every time you make a decision, you're learning. Because again, the decision you make today, think about an autonomous vehicle. The decision it's making right this very moment might be different 5 seconds from now, because the light has changed, a car has passed in front of them, a bicyclist has gone by, it started to rain, right? So we have to engineer our systems using AI to continuously learn and adapt, because that's how we as humans operate. We continuously learn and adapt. The world changes. And if we don't, by the way, we don't have much success in life. But the people who are successful are the ones who learn to continuously learn and adapt. I like to say that in today's world, what you're learning may be more important than what you know. Now think about that for a second. What you're learning may be more important than what you know. It doesn't mean what you know is worthless, but that is the foundation that helps you to learn more about what's happening today, so that what you're learning has context based on what you've learned in the past.
That's incredible, because now that I think about it, it's like actually these tools are allowing us to actually bring more humanity to data analysis, because it's more real. In the past, it's like we were always looking at past data and at a very static view of things. And now it's so much more real and dynamic.
You've nailed it. You've nailed the problem, right? The traditional machine learning models looked at trends, patterns, and relationships in history and used that to predict forward, right? And that worked great until the world changed. And then we got what was called model drift, right? We got model drift. We all had to worry about model drift. And a model was immediately out of date the minute you released it, because the world changes. And that's why this idea of things like reinforcement learning and agentic AI and Gen AI, these, I call them the intelligence technologies that have the ability to learn and adapt. This is why they're so powerful, because they could constantly, and by the way, in the world of sports, they can learn from micro failures, right? I'm bad in a baseball game and I swing and miss. The system can learn. It's like, well, Schmarzo can't hit that curveball, right? It takes note. It says, I got to figure out how to train him to hit curveballs, right? How to see them better, right? So this in this new world, failure becomes a data point, a learning point. And the successful humans, like successful organizations, embrace what a KPI I call learning velocity. That my ability to learn and adapt more quickly is what's going to differentiate me and my success from other people.
What I love about your framework is also the feedback loop. Like, what is the term you're using? Because there is this layer of focusing on feedback. I call them,
the learning. There's the 6 elements of the learning constructs framework, right?
Yes.
You got to be able to instrument it, right? You got to be able to see what's going on, right? IoT devices, video cameras, etc. I got to be able to observe the results. I got to observe what happened. I have to have a feedback loop that leverages, stochastic gradient descent, big term for the day, back propagation, and temporal difference learning. Those 3 things are how machine models learn, or AI models learn. They're also how humans learn. I did a video, give you a homework assignment, that explained stochastic gradient descent and back propagation using 2 nozzles of a faucet, and how I'm trying to get the perfect temperature, right? And so I put my hand in, it's too hot. And so, right, we got some back propagation feedback. I use stochastic, and I'm constantly tweaking these until I get the right one. Now, right, imagine in a real world where the water coming out of the spouts isn't consistent. It's hotter, it gets colder, it gets hotter, right? And you're constantly then tweaking those faucets. And so those concepts are really basically simple concepts that we as humans already know. And all we're trying to do is teach our AI models to embrace these same concepts, so these AI models can help us be more creative and more innovative and more effective.
In terms of how much data you capture, I was wondering, how far do you go? For example, if you have an example on your newsletter about a nurse using these tools to assess a patient, if they can go home, things like that. But I was wondering, in addition to data about that patient in particular, there are other aspects like, you know, that sometimes there are constraints in a hospital, or there are
Yes.
not enough doctors, or maybe there are other patients that are in a much worse situation. And this is a very tricky topic, right? But how do you decide how much data from other entities do you need to make a decision about a particular entity?
Well, there's a couple of questions here. So I'm going to answer one question. We probably have to come back to the other ones. This prioritization is a challenge, but it is the heart of what we need to do to transform our organization's economic value curve. An economic value curve measures an organization's effectiveness of using a series of independent variables to drive a desired outcome. So if we're trying to reduce unplanned operational downtime, we would increase maintenance, and we'd increase our consumables, and we'd increase, right? So there's all these things we can do. The key to transferring economic value, so the problem with economic value curve is at some point in time, it reaches the law of diminishing returns. It's a law, economic law, that the more and more you spend on reducing operational downtime or improving patient outcomes effectiveness, the more and more you spend, the less outcomes you get. How do you change that? You said it earlier, prioritization, knowing what are the important things to do and focus on doing those, putting the right people in the right situation to solve the right problems. Not all nurses, by the way, are good at handling cancer patients or handling this, right? So knowing what your nurses and doctors and technicians are best at doing then, and prioritizing and matching them to the right opportunities, but also knowing what's not important to do. And how do I turn off not important things? And it's an economics-based conversation where AI can help us figure out, well, what are the right things we should be doing? And if this is the most important thing, what are the right set of people who should be doing that? And here's my second most important thing. And oh, by the way, maybe my second most important thing, I can pull somebody off of here, off my most important thing, and put them on this one because their replacement is almost as good. In sports, by the way, there's a whole concept called wins above average. It's called WAR in baseball, which says it's understanding the trade-offs you make in sports between what players you're going to play, what players you're going to try to recruit, who you're going to give scholarship money to. And so sports is already wrestling with these concepts of basically what I would call organizational improv, of finding the right people to put in the right situation and the ability to move them based on problems. The sports world has already solved this problem. We can use this same technique. Requires lots of data. It requires very detailed insights on each of your employees, each of your nurses, doctors, right, your teachers, your facility faculty. And this is where organizations really fall down. This is why sports is such a great proving ground, because sports goes to a huge level. Because the value of the athlete is so clearly understood. There's athletes that are worth in professional basketball, hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, I got to tell you, nurses have value too. Teachers have value, designers, and we don't as organizations invest the time to say, who are my best nurses for what situation? Who are my best teachers for what situation? Who are my best attorneys for what situations? We don't do that. But we could. The same tools, the same methods, the same models we built for athletes work for architects, detectives, police officers, social workers, you name it, it works for them as well, because we are all humans who have unique skills and capabilities that sometimes don't get surfaced because we get put into an average defined role. Sorry if I went off on that, but I think to me, that's why I wrote the book. That's why I wrote the book, The AI Human Edge, because it's about how we can know. I hate the idea that organizations say, my employees are our most important asset. And the minute things go south, what do? We fire employees. No. The minute things go south, you should be empowering those employees. How do we find new revenue streams? How do we drive down costs? How do we become more efficient, right? That's about really understanding and investing in your employees. And we haven't done that. But with AI, we can do that. And we can do it at a level of scale that's we've never done before, because AI has an ability to build very detailed models on each and every one of our employees, each one of our athletes, each one of our nurses, their predicted behavioral performance propensities, and we can match those with the details we understand about our students, our nurses, our caregivers, et cetera. So we we do more with less. We transform that economic value curve.
Thank you so much. I want to really thank you so much for this opportunity, accepting the invitation, sharing so much. I feel like you are so generous sharing your knowledge. Listening to you is worth a master's degree in business. How can we get the book? When is it going to be available?
Oh, probably so. The book is called The AI Human Edge, and I'm knocking on wood here. It's hopefully going to be go to the publisher in probably 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to actually self-publish it on Amazon, and I self-publish for 2 reasons. When I go through a publisher, I immediately lose control of distribution and pricing. I want to price this book at a price where everybody can get it, right? So I want to control pricing. And if I want to be able to give the book away to my students, I can give it away to my students. And so I'm self-publishing. It'll be on Amazon. Hopefully, again, that'll probably go to Amazon. It's coming out of my publisher. And then hopefully the next 4 to 8 weeks, it'll be available.
Excellent. Also, on your website, there are other books that are already available. I'm reading one of them, and it's really life-changing for me in my career. You bring a lot of knowledge from other disciplines that I think people in data really need, doing the data, the technical stuff, and we lose sight of the design thinking and all the other components that you teach so well.
And that's the beauty of AI. AI is going to do some of that data science and programming work for us. And now we have extra cycles to spend learning design thinking and learn, maybe I have a passion in healthcare. Well, you know what? Data science and healthcare, you have a passion in sports, you have a passion in retail, you have a passion in manufacturing. Whatever your passion might be, follow that passion, right? Your data and AI skills are going to come along with you. They'll make you better in healthcare. So I tell all my students, find your passion and chase that passion. Data and AI will help you be more effective in that passion.
Thank you so much again.
Lavinia, thank you very much for the invitation. I have this passion for teaching. Everybody has a passion. Mine's to teach and give back. So I'm trying to chase my passion.